Hello Fab fans, my name's Josh and this is episode 5. This week we'll be taking this pretty standard Bluetooth speaker and making it something more becoming of the channel. This will be our second monthly giveaway, and at the end of the episode I'll let you guys know what you need to do to be in the chance to win it. And on top of all that, I'll be announcing the winner of our first monthly giveaway.
I'm leaving here with something.
So let's get going. I've had this Bluetooth speaker sat at home for quite a while now and always thought it looked a bit bland. And that got me to thinking, why not change it? It's just a box. We have all the components we need, we've just got to get them out. So our first job is to tear this puppy apart. Yep, you can't make it if you don't break it. Having very little knowledge on how the speaker has been assembled, this is pretty much a wing it and see type of job. As we get a bit deeper into this and more parts come out, it's looking like this should be a fairly simple debuild. I was wondering where all this was hiding. Now that we've found all the main electronics, it's time to carefully remove them. Or maybe not. Ta-da! And that is all the main electrical components out. Rather annoyingly, I did break the connector block for the little LED panel, but I think that's a pretty simple fix, and we can worry about that later. The next job, remove the speakers and see if I can save the wiring. From the small amount of audio-based knowledge that I do have, I knew this bit would be fairly straightforward. We just need to avoid snapping any pins or accidentally cutting any of the cabling. And it looks like this should all come out quite nicely. Or maybe not. With all the wiring now out of the main box, we'll get our little mishap sorted out. And with that, we have one fully disassembled speaker. I also found this little fella, which I'm taking as a good sign. So that was a much simpler job than I expected. I thought I was going to be getting the hammers and the saws and the bars and everything else, and we were going to make a mess of this, but quite a pleasant job. And with everything now laid out and we can see all the components we have, we need to put all this back together. And for that, we need to have a rummage around the shop. I didn't really have much of a plan going into this, until I found this. And remembered, I've got that. I had originally intended on using these as headrests for the seats, but the shape wasn't quite right. Luckily, for jobs like this, they work beautifully. And in this case, the flat along the bottom fits our big speaker perfectly. Ooh.
I love it when a plan comes together.
So, we need to cut a couple of blanks and get these end caps pressed up. With this tool utilising a positioning guide for the blank, we have a perfect template to work to. So, it's time to get marking, cutting and cleaning. Nearly there. This is why we have these laser cuts. Lovely old job. Now it's time to get these pressed up. As with the majority of my pressing tools, this little fella can be used to make two very different parts. We can either use the tool as shown here and create a simple flat-faced part, or we can add this. This part of the tooling adds a second central detail by utilising the void in the face of the male. So, time to get this tool prepped and our part pressed. And there we have it, two parts ready to go. Or are they? So I have worked out a solve for this little flatness issue, but I haven't implemented it into that tooling yet. So we're going to do it the hard way instead. Yep, we're back to marking, cutting and cleaning. And there we have it, two end caps ready to go. It's just gone 5 o'clock, so I'm going to be calling it a day there. Before I finish today, I thought I'd just have a quick mock-up and see if I can get what's in my head to work with my hands. And so far, looking pretty good. Day done. On to day 2. Our first job today is to look at the main body. Luckily, I still had the drawings for the pressing tool and could work out the circumference of the completed parts pretty easily. So, it's time to get this marked up and ready for rolling. Just like that. With our main sheet now marked up, we could go ahead and drop this straight into the rollers. But we're going to think ahead and add a few more details before we get to that point. With this speaker having quite a lot of electronics involved, and possibly needing the option to get back in the box once assembled, we're going to rivet this together. And rather than having to deal with an odd shape later on, we'll drill all the holes in the sheet before rolling. Remember, work smart, not hard. So that's our main sheet drilled and ready for riveting. There are still a few more details that we need to put in, but with this being a wing it job, I'm going to leave them for future Josh. Right now, we're going to get this cleaned off, get the rollers down, and get this shaped up. Yep, it's time for a bit of a reshuffle. After a little bit of jiggery pokery, we've got a main body that's pretty close. Quite a bit closer than I was expecting. We will weld in this joint. I think it would be about right, but we're not doing that. So the next job is to look at the joining plates that are going to attach the two end caps. Riveting into thin air won't get us very far, so we need to create an interior lip around the cap to give us a face to rivet to. And with that, we're done with rolling for today. Time to weld up the joint and get this part ready for the next stage. And this stage uses our old friend, the bead former. Today's tooling will be the tank rolls. We'll be using these to create a rounded edge on one side of the joiner, which should marry up with our pressed parts.
So this does look a little bit of a mess at the minute. The tank rolls are fairly difficult to use by hand, but for what we need, it's spot on. All we have to do now, cut this into 2 parts and get these mated together. And there is our first joiner. Well, actually, it's our second. I've just had to let the camera charge up for a little bit, so rather than wasting some time, I thought I'd check that all this is going to work. And luckily, it looks like it is. So, let's get the second one done and have the camera rolling while we're doing it.
So, after watching this all back, I've worked out that there was a much simpler way to do all of this. What I should have done is remove the rolled edges from the corners and only attach the lips to the cap along the straight edges. But hey, we're all here to learn and I'll keep it in mind for next time. Here's a bit more hard labour viewing for you guys. With our lips now roughly shaped, we need to get them tacked inside the caps. With the first half of our lip now tacked in, we can use the previous piece to determine the length required for the second half. We can also use this piece as a guide for our shaping. With that now tacked, and after a quick clean up and brush up, we have our 2 caps.
And there we have it. 1 main body, 2 end caps. Job's a good one. So it's getting pretty late on day 2. I was expecting this to be a long one, but it's looking like it might be the first 4 day. So I'm just going to get this pinned in, but something's come up. One of the future Josh problems was this. I was thinking putting a larger access plate here, but now I've seen just how nicely it fits. And with a bit of tinkering, I think that'll be flush. So we're going to scrap that and probably decide tomorrow on what to do with this. But for now, it's time to get drilling.
Seeing as we will need to open this up later on, we need to check the body's main length is correct. We'll be using clecos to pin the parts together. These clever little sheet metal tools allow you to pre-drill parts for riveting, but not have to add rivets to keep everything positioned. and I'll call it a day there.
And we're on to day 3. After putting a bit of thought into this through the evening, I'm going to push this body to one side for the minute and work on some of the finer details for the speaker.
And our first job uses the second pressing tool of this project. This tool is about as simple as they come. 2 parts that bolt together to sandwich the workpiece and provide a void for the detail to be pressed into. For this, we need to create a blank that just fits inside the bolt pattern, keeping it nice and central in the tool. So, back to marking, cutting and cleaning. 1 round disc ready for the grinder. Time to get it positioned and clamped in our pressing tool. With that now clamped up, we need something to create our detail, and I've just found this. This should do the job nicely. But how do we make sure this is central? Well, mark it up of course. And with that, it's back to the press. Annoyingly, I did forget that I needed to use another steel ring with this part to help it form evenly. But luckily for us, we can sort that without too much issue. And there we have one very simple pressing. Time to get it unbolted and see how it looks. And that is one speaker surround pressed up. Fits quite nicely. Would probably look good on a different type of speaker. But after having a quick play with the body, I don't actually like it. I think it's going to ruin the aesthetic of the speaker as a whole, so for now. But I'll leave the clips in so you guys can see that pressing tool. Yep, we'll scrap that idea and mount the main speaker flush with the front of the body. This means unclipping both ends, and we need to remember which side is which. To do this, we need to find the centre of the front face and mark out a hole that will allow the speaker to be mounted. So it's back to marking, cutting and cleaning. As I don't have anything large enough to drill this hole, we'll be doing this in stages. First, we'll use the largest hole saw I have to remove as much material as possible. Once that's drilled, we'll fix the part to the bench and use this extremely handy finger file to remove the remaining material. Well, that was the plan.
Looks like I need to invest in some bigger batteries for this. Whilst that's charging up, I'm going to get little speakers in the ends.
Exactly the same principle applies for these, with the main difference being we do have a hole saw that is the perfect size for these speakers. Lovely jubbly. Time for a quick clean up and we can get this speaker mounted.
I don't think these could have turned out any better. The plan was always to keep them quite minimalistic and unintrusive, I think is the best word. From a distance they should look quite clean. It's only when you get up close that you see all the smaller details and understand that it is handmade. So now these two are both ready and my batteries are charged up, time to get back onto the main body.
And there we have one big round hole. Simple as that. Time for a quick clean up and brush up, and we're ready to mount the main speaker. With our speaker dimensions sitting just inside the flat of the face, we can rivet this directly to the body. To do that, we need to mark the centres and drill some holes. With the slots in our speaker being slightly larger than our rivets, we'll be adding washers to create a stronger hold.
And there is one speaker. Genuinely excited about this. This is looking cool. Our next job is to add the foot. Just going to keep this face nice and square and make it look like it's balancing on a very small point when it's not. So it's time to get marking and cutting.
Yep, I'd like this speaker to look like it's balanced on a small point. So we need to add a section to fill this void and support the speaker's weight. And this is the flat pattern we'll be using. So, time to get this folded up. A bit like that.
So I've just made a couple of little alterations to this part. I think it was going to be a little bit too visible with these corners still on, so hopefully that takes it off the eye. I've also realised that this section here could scrap the main body, so I'm going to crack on with this and not have the camera rolling so that I don't make any silly pressured mistakes, and I'll be back in a jiffy.
12 seconds later.
And we're all good. As you can see, we've now got a very precariously perched speaker. So if you look from the side, you can still see it. I actually quite like it as a detail. And as well as being a foot, it's also going to do two other things. It will be our air inlet for the larger speaker, and I'm pretty sure I can hide the power cable through here as well. But with that all now in place, it's time to take a look at the electronics and decide how we're going to mount them. So we've got three main parts here. We have a small control board, which you can select which setting you want the speaker to run in. We have an amplifier, and we have what I think is a transformer. So in the original body, everything was held in here and slid into these 4 pins, well 6 pins actually. So I think I'm going to cut this up and steal these, because the plan, what we could do, build up another box on top, mount everything as it was in line, but I don't like that. It's going to affect the lines too much. It's going to be quite bulky and big. It's not what we do. What I'm thinking is to mount them onto the body, because we need to keep a small window for the infrared, and we also have 5 smaller windows for the LED panel. And I'm pretty sure we can mount these and get them nice and central to the speaker. So I'm going to cut this up.
Yes, I'm using a grinder on plastic. It's not proper, but it works. With the section now cut out, I'm going to split this into 2 separate pieces, mainly to make arranging these parts inside the body a fair bit easier.
And after a little bit of cleaning up, we now have our 2 chassis. The next job, get these in there. But before we get to that, it has just gone dark outside, so we're going to call it a day there and hopefully get this finished tomorrow.
For the first time on this channel, we're on to day 4. The first part we'll be looking at today is this control board. With this including both push switches and a docking station, we need to make sure it fits nicely on the top face of the speaker. Luckily, the original part had this handy drilling template attached, so we'll get this riveted on, mark our hole centres, and then file out all of the detail. And after what felt like a lifetime's worth of filing, we have our details cut in. And with that all fitting quite nicely, it's time to get this bolted in place. Now we move on to fitting the amplifier. You can see I've already drilled the holes here, which I forgot to press record on, and we can now see our infrared lens and the small LED panel. With these two parts now in position, we can attach the first lot of wiring and position the transformer. With all of our electronics now mounted inside the body, we can attach the final wiring connections and decide where to mount this chassis connector for the main power input. After taking a quick look over the body as a whole, I've decided to mount this centrally at the rear and slightly off the floor. And with that decision, it's back to marking, cutting and cleaning. Almost finished. It's time to make sure we have the speaker cables the correct way round.
And that is everything together. Before we close this up, I'm going to plug it in, give it a check, make sure everything works, because I really don't want to have to open this again. So yeah, let's see if it goes bang. We have power, and the buttons work.
Paired.
So far so good. Bam! Does that work?
With everything now checked and working, it's time to get this body riveted together. To stiffen this joint up, I'm going to add these 3 more plates in between the foot and the end caps. With the joint now fully riveted, it's time to get the end caps in place. Here we will be riveting the first cap completely, then move on to using the clecos for the opposite side. This way we can drill all of the holes required, but remove the end cap before sealing to remove any swarf and do a final check of our wiring. And this right here is why you always check twice.
And we are done. I'm pretty sure this is the longest job I've ever done in the garage, so hopefully you can see why. I can't stop looking at it. Just giving it another check, everything's working as it should. But for now, we've got quite a few more things to do. Yep, it's a busy end to this video. This is our second monthly giveaway, so if you guys want to be in a chance to win it, all you need to do, like this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and comment with the very aptly named "I want it." So make sure you don't miss out on that. For now, we're going to look at our this and that for next week, and then I'm going to announce the winner of our first monthly giveaway and see who's going to be getting that seat. So, today's this and that choices are either remake this manual pin press with a few design changes and hopefully get rid of these Chinesey tolerances, or we can have a look at what it takes to wire up that.
And see what is involved in getting a 3-phase pillar drill to work via this single-phase variable frequency drive.
So let me know in the comments which one you want to see, and we'll get that done next week. And finally, on to the last part of today, and something that I think a few of you will be quite excited to see, the winner of last month's giveaway. We've had a cracking response to this. Thank you very much to everyone that's involved. We've numbered everyone that has commented and been included. So we'll run all these for a random number generator and see who takes it. Whee! Congratulations, you've got it. I'll leave you a comment on that video with a couple of ways to get in touch with me, and I'll also have a search and see if I can find you on social media. And that is it for this week's episode. Don't forget to like the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel, but today I'm going to let our job signs off.
Thank you very much for watching this episode from Fantastic Fabrication and Welding Wizardry. We'll see you next time. Ciao for now.